I like to record my shows so I can study them and make improvements or changes for the next time. So I'm talking about this bookstore called An Unlikely Story, which is down in Plainville. If you've ever heard of the kids' book series, Diary of a Wimpy Kid.
Yes.
So the author of those books, I forget his name, but the author of those books bought a building and he made this great bookstore. A lot of it is aimed at children. And people from all over come and they bring their kids to this bookstore. There's a little cafe there and there's an upstairs room where authors come and talk about their books and do book signings and all like that. But they also have other programs there. Have a seat.
Thank you.
So I recently found out that this bookstore in Plainville does an open mic once a month from like 6 to 8 p.m. And I wanted to try it. So I went there and I did some research online and it described it's family-friendly material. It's not just comedians. You could play the guitar and sing, you could recite poetry, you could tell stories, or you could do comedy. But the rules were very strict about making sure the material was family-friendly. So I got there early, signed up, and I talked with the program director. And I said, well, my program really is like PG-13. And she said, well, you might want to tell me some of your jokes that might be borderline, because if I think your joke is inappropriate, I'm going to pull you off the stage. That's how strict they are about family-friendly stuff. So I told her 3 of my jokes. There was one that has the word anus in it, and that passed. I'm still going to tell that joke. There's another joke that talks about having a catheter. She said that was okay. But there was one joke that she didn't like, and I'm going to tell you what this joke is, because I've always told this joke in my opening at senior centers, and I've never had a complaint about it, but it has a little bit of a sexual innuendo to it. So I'm going to see what your reaction is, because I think the joke is okay, but I understand what they're saying. An elderly man lives in senior housing. He's about to turn 85. His friends want to play a practical joke on him, so they hire a professional woman to visit him on the day of his 85th birthday. So the day arrives, and there's a knock on the door, and a beautiful young woman walks in, and she exclaims enthusiastically, she says, I am here to bring you super sex. So the man thinks for a second, and he says, thank you very much, young lady. I think I'll have the soup.
That's cool.
That joke did not pass inspection. But I tell that joke all the time, and yeah, it's a little bit suggestive, but I use the word a professional woman, which could mean she's just a professional actress playing a part, as opposed to what people usually think it is. So I think the joke is fine. Oh, I don't know. Yes. Oh, we have a question. But
So since you rejected that joke, you were not allowed to go on at all?
oh no, I went on. I just couldn't tell that joke,
Oh,
which is fine.
I say soup or nuts instead of soup or sex.
I don't know. I like my version of it. All right. I'm going to invite you now to come back to 1960 with me. Dorchester. I'm 8 years old. Grew up in the triple deckers. Family first floor, family second floor, family third floor. Tiny backyard, tiny front yard. Little alley separating the houses. And that's why we played in the streets. Whether it be hopscotch or 1, 2, 3 red light or Red Rover or whatever the games we played, that's what we did. What was that thing with walking on the sidewalk that we had to be careful of? Yeah. Step on a crack break your mother's back. Does this sound familiar to anybody, Gray? Yeah. So when we walked on the sidewalks, we tried, because we were 8 years old, we believed that stuff. And you have to think, how did that even come about? How did that even happen? Did a woman ever go to an emergency room, all bent over, and they asked what happened, and she said, "My stupid kid stepped on a sidewalk crack"? I mean, you don't know how those things happen. Now, at 8 years old, you just kind of accept things that are happening around you. You might not understand it all. One of the things that I never understood was that we had a bowl of plastic fruit. Plastic fruit. And we didn't even keep it out. It stayed in the pantry. But when company came, that's when we brought it out. When company came, that was my job. Get the bowl of plastic fruit and bring it up. And those were in the days when you actually had company, right? There were no cell phones back then. People would drive around and they go, "Oh, let's go visit the Ameses." The doorbell would ring. People would start coming up the stairs. My father would yell, "Alan, go get the bowl of plastic fruit," right? Put it out on the table. People come up, sit down. "Oh, you put out your bowl of plastic fruit." "Yes, we regard you very highly. You put out the bowl of plastic fruit." Now, something else about plastic back then. We had a couch. Covered in plastic, right? All the time. It was like a fitted piece of plastic, like a fitted sheet, the first sheet on the bed. And it was this thick plastic, and it stayed on the couch all the time. Even if company came, when they came, they had to sit on the plastic on the couch. Occasionally, if no one was looking, I'd slip my hand under and feel the fabric just to see. But nothing ever happened. Now, something else about that time that's different today than it was then. My mother was having a birthday, and my father got her what he thought was one of the best presents ever. He got her a vacuum cleaner. A vacuum cleaner. If I ever got my wife a vacuum cleaner for her birthday, the cause of death on the coroner's report would be, what? Strangulation by electrical cord, right? And this poor woman, she worked in Boston, Post Office Square. She was a dictaphone operator. She would listen to what her bosses recorded, and then she'd type it all. And she had to take a bus and a train, and then a train and a bus to get home. So on the day of her birthday, she's coming home, she's coming up the stairs, and we have the vacuum cleaners right near the door. She walks in, and we yell, "Happy birthday," and turn the vacuum cleaner on. Happy birthday. Now go vacuum the house. I mean, that's just how different things were then than they are now. Now, if my father were alive today, he would be 106. And he loved telling stories and jokes, and I think I get a lot of it from him. I do. When they retired to an apartment complex in Brockton, and in the nice weather, he would sit out back on the lawns, and little kids of all ethnicities would sit around like at a campfire, and he would tell them story after story after story. So I know I get a lot of this from him. Now, I do remember some of the jokes and some of the things that he said that were funny. And he had a poem, and the poem was about pay toilets. Pay toilets, because growing up in Boston back then, there were pay toilets at bus stations, train stations, retail stores, in different places where you needed a coin, right, to open the door and go in. In fact, we had those shoes with a little slit on it that you keep a coin in. Well, thank you. Penny loafers, right? So just in case, we had a coin in there. So what I'd like to do is I would like to honor my father's memory, and I want to tell you this little poem of his, and it goes like this. Here I sit, broken-hearted, paid a dime, and only farted. And he would just say that randomly all the time. My wife and I have been married 51 years. People usually clap at that point. Thank you, thank you. And this poor woman has had to put up with me all these years because any silly thought that comes into my mind, any joke, anything that I observe, I'll just blur it out and she has to listen to all my silliness. But before we get to my stuff that I've said, my wife has occasionally said some things that she wasn't trying to be funny, but the things she said actually turned out to be funny. And I'll give you a few examples of that. Is that even a word? She bought, a thermos that she loved. It was like sleek, and it did what a thermos does. Keeps cold stuff cold, hot stuff hot. And she walked in front of me one day and she held this thermos out to me and she said, "This is the best thing I've ever done." And I thought to myself, where am I on that list? Where am I on that list? I hope I'm at least somewhere near the Shark Ninja blender, at least, something like that. We were in the supermarket one day, and our son that lives down in Maryland, we had assigned him the ringtone of crickets chirping. So when we hear crickets chirping, we know it's coming from my phone. So we're in the supermarket, and we hear the ringtone of crickets chirping. So I looked at my phone, but it wasn't coming from my phone. It was coming from a guy a little bit further down. So my wife says, "Why is Kenny calling that guy?" You need to find out how he knows our son. Just as another example of things that she says. Let's talk a little bit about let's talk a little bit about getting older. I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions now. You ready? Do you remember Encyclopedia Britannica?
Yes.
Do you remember S&H green stamps?
Yes.
Do you remember Sears catalog?
Yes.
Do you remember taking your film to a photomat booth?
Yes.
Do you have a box of old black and white photos from generations ago with people on it you don't know anymore? Yeah? Okay. Did you watch the Ed Sullivan Show?
Yes.
Did you watch the Beatles on it?
Yes.
Yeah, we didn't miss that. Do you remember sea monkeys?
Yes.
Kind of. They were these little dry things, right? But they were actually just little shrimp that were asleep. And you put them in a bowl of water and they'd come to life, right? Right? You do that. Did you ever burn an ant with a magnifying glass with the sun? No one ever did that. No one here ever did that as a kid. Yeah, we used to do that. Lee, you did that, didn't you? Yeah, so those people near Lee, you might want to move because he could snap at any moment now. Well, if you answered yes to any of those, and I know we answered yes to a lot of those, congratulations, you are a senior citizen. So what? So we got older. Our health changed, our bodies changed, perhaps our perspective on life. So what? We're here, we're out, we're doing stuff, you're taking advantage of the programs here at the Senior Center. As far as health goes, the one thing that's kind of bothering me right now, it's not really a big deal, is that I know that at some point I'm going to need a hearing aid. I had a hearing test about a year ago. I was kind of borderline. My wife wants me to go back and have another hearing test because thinks my hearing is getting worse, which, you know, I'm a guy, we're stubborn. But this is what my hearing is doing to me now. Here's an example. My wife and I were watching the news the other night. Kind of watching the news, kind of playing with our phone, because that's what we do now. I could have sworn I heard the newscaster say something about a woman being shot in her anus. In her anus. And I thought to myself, how is that even possible? How does a woman get shot in her anus? Was she tying her shoe, or what was happening there? So I said to my wife, I said, did you hear that? How does a woman get shot in her anus? So my wife very lovingly said to me, Alan, you're an idiot. The woman got shot in hyannis. So I guess I'll have my hearing tested. About 6 weeks ago, I did have prostate cancer surgery, and it did go well. It's still on the mend, but I'm doing pretty good. Thank you. It was actually a new procedure using ultrasound, but I'm not going to get into all that. It was an uncomfortable couple of weeks, but it was bearable. And one thing that bothered me a lot was I left the hospital with a catheter for a week, right? So I'm talking to my friend Lee over there, who can't hear anything anyway, because he's...
What?
So, talking to my friend Lee at breakfast one day, and I was telling him about having the catheter in me for a week, and he goes, oh yeah, I had a catheter in me for 2 weeks, and it was a real pain in the ass. I said to him, Lee, they put it in the wrong hole. You remember that, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Again, captain of his debate team, really good. Oh boy. You know, health-wise, things are going, pretty well. It's funny going supermarket shopping. I really don't like going with my wife. If you remember during COVID, the arrows on the floor, up an aisle, down the aisle, and all that. Well, my wife has always been a nursery school teacher or a teacher of some sort, so she goes by the rules all the time. So if we're going up an aisle and someone's coming down the up aisle, she actually would stop them and guilt them until they actually turned around. She would. Now I used to do something at the supermarket that annoyed her. If we were walking across the top of the aisles, and I wanted to go down an aisle that was an up aisle, easy. Just turn around and walk backwards. Like you forgot something. I did that a number of times, and every time she got mad at me. Every single time. I'm a list person. I like to use a list when I go supermarket shopping. I really do. And I'll go through and get what I need, but when my wife comes with me, it's like she's competing on supermarket sweepstakes. She doesn't go by the list, she just throws things in, During COVID, I'm not embarrassed to tell you that we had some of our worst fights during COVID. And they weren't about money, they weren't about being around each other all the time. Our worst fights were about the correct way to do a jigsaw puzzle. We could agree on doing the outside first, but she liked to do an area, and I like to look at each piece and see where it went and work from there. And we got into some real, she could fling those pieces at me. They really hurt. They did. They did. I think what I'd like to do now is share just some random jokes and stories and things like that. Two guys, lifelong buddies, all about baseball. They played baseball growing up. They went to spring training.
You wanna sit down?
They season's tickets for the Red Sox, everything about the Red Sox. Well, one day, one of them passes on. About a week later, the other guy's in bed, and he sees a vision of his friend. He goes, "Mike, is that you?" He goes, "Yeah, it's me." He says, "You're in heaven, right?" "Yeah, I'm in heaven." "Well, tell me this, is there baseball in heaven?" So he goes, "Well, there's good news and bad news." "Okay, well, what's the good news?" "Good news is there is baseball in heaven." "Oh, great. Well, what's the bad news?" "Well, the bad news is you're pitching tomorrow." We needed to get numbers for our mailbox. The address we had was 10. So we went to the hardware store, and I'm looking, and I had to call the manager over. The manager goes, "What's wrong?" I said, "Well, I need the number 10, but the highest number you have here is 9. So I got the 9, just close enough. Sometimes my neighbor gets their pizza, sometimes they don't. Our 2 sons are very competitive. They were arguing one day about how much money they make. You know, this is my salary, this is my potential, this is my bonus, all that kind of stuff. So I had to break that up. I said, "Hey, I make 6 figures also." They go, "You do?" I said, "Yeah, I make 6 figures. Unfortunately, 2 of them are after the decimal point." And then they're arguing one day about how smart they are because, they graduate with honors. They have that cum laude thing, the summa cum, and all that stuff, whatever they call those honors, right? Cum laude, super cum laude, and all like that. I said, "Hey, I graduated with honors also." They go, "Dad, what honors did you graduate with?" I said, "I graduated someone cum get me." Two little girls, they're sisters, one's 6, one's 4. They're in the bathroom one day looking at the scale that's on the ground. The older one says to the younger one, "Don't ever step on that. Whenever Mommy steps on that, it makes her cry." Do you remember the A&P supermarket chain? They're out of business now. They had a chance to merge with Stop and Shop years ago. And I wish they had, because then they would have been called Stop and P. That's right. That's right. I've applied for a lot of jobs over the years. I did get some good ones, but there are a lot of jobs I didn't get. And the jobs I didn't get, they always gave you a little ray of hope, because they always told me that they were putting me on their short list. Oh, remember the movie Dirty Dancing from years ago?
Yeah.
They're actually thinking of making a sequel to that now after all these years. If so, they're going to call it Dirty Diapers. Now you're shaking your head no because it's not funny, or you just didn't like the joke itself. Okay. Oh boy. So there's a lot of things that bother me that are going on out there. And they could be things like TV commercials. They could be things like road signs. They could be things like expressions that people say and use. And I feel so strongly about this that I am going to share some of these with you. So things that people say, you know how might be a retirement party and someone's being honored and you ask them if they want to, say a few words, and they get up and they say they're speechless. And then they give a speech. If you say you're speechless, then you're done. Sit down. And it's the same thing if they say, I'm at a loss for words. Well, you're not at a loss for words because you just said some, and same thing, just, go sit down. And another one that bothers me is when people say something and then follow it up by saying, I'm not going to lie. Like the person doing the traffic report recently, I heard her say something about the traffic on the Mass Turnpike was moving along really well. I'm not going to lie. Well, thanks for that. I think you're supposed to not lie. So is everything else a lie if you have to say that? And the last thing is when people pronounce the letter T in the word often. Often. It's often. It's not often. We're not in England. It's not like, oh, how often are you going fox hunting? Oh, we go fox hunting quite often. We don't talk like that here. And I'm going to tell you why. So when you do laundry, you add detergent. But then you add something if you want it to feel all nice and fluffy.
Fabric softener.
Softener, not softener. Softener. So that's why it bothers me when I hear people pronounce the T in the word often. And that brings us to the suicidal tuna fish, Charlie the tuna. Those commercials have been around forever, for decades. Is it Starkist or Chicken of the Sea? I can never remember which is which. Is it Chicken of the Sea? Tuna the Charlie. Tuna the Charlie. Charlie the tuna. Starkist, right? Okay, good. So when we were younger, we would use those catchphrases because the catchphrases were sorry, Charlie. We'd say, sorry, Charlie, that was the big thing. And their slogan was, sorry, Charlie, we want tuna that tastes good, not tuna that has good taste. And that's why Charlie the tuna wore the beret and the thick glasses because he wanted to look cool so he would be caught. Has anybody ever explained to Charlie the tuna what happens when he gets caught? I don't get it. When Charlie the tuna gets caught, he's going to be chopped up into about 800 little pieces. Those pieces are going to go in a little round tin can, and then it's going to get opened up, mixed with mayonnaise, slapped between a couple of pieces of bread, put in a brown paper bag, and a chubby little kid from Dorchester is going to take it to lunch every day. That's what's going to happen. Like, can you imagine the fishermen on the boat that pull up a net, and there's a tuna in there wearing a beret and glasses. And they go, hey, we finally caught Charlie the tuna. He doesn't look too happy. It's just a weird premise for a commercial that this tuna wants to get caught and thinks it would be the greatest thing to be put into a little can of tuna. Oh, what other commercials bother me? How about Pepto-Bismol? Now, the commercial itself doesn't bother me, but it's the fact that they sing the word diarrhea as part of the song, right? Because if you've seen these commercials, they're dancing and everything, and the song goes, it goes nausea, heartburn, indigestion, upset stomach, and then this big finale, diarrhea. Like this is the greatest thing, and then you're supposed, oh, well, maybe we should get that. I don't know. So that's what bothers me about the Pepto-Bismol commercial. Have you seen this commercial about Dixie plates? It's on recently. And part of the commercial, is this woman, and she has all this food on a paper plate. It's not a Dixie plate. And her daughter is showing her the diorama, the project that she had for school. And she leans over, and all the food falls onto the daughter's project, right? Like, who does that? But the second half of that commercial is the guy who's sitting at his computer. And he's holding this plate of food, right? And if you ever paused, if you could, and looked at all the food on his plate, it's like he went to a mall that has a food court, and he got something from every single restaurant in the food court. There is so much food on his plate. So of course, what happens? It falls off all over him. And when I see this commercial, I scream at the TV. You know, I do. I say, why are you taking so much food? It just really bothers me. There are some signs around that also bother me. Apparently a lot of things bother me. If you were driving up Interstate 95 from New York into Connecticut, there's actually a sign on the northbound side of 95 that says, correctional facility, no stopping. Is this a problem? Are people driving up Interstate 95 at 65 miles an hour, pulling over to pick up hitchhikers in orange uniforms? Is this happening so often that they had to put up a sign? I mean, you know, you picture a couple of convicts, they're planning their escape. They say, yeah, we'll get out, we'll go through the trees, we'll go to the edge of the highway, and the other guy goes, no, you can't do that anymore, they put up a sign. So instead of spending money on the sign, just fix the hole in the fence. That sign is really there. Is there a Big Y around here? Do you guys got a Big Y supermarket at all? So there's a couple of them around. And I go there usually in the afternoon just to pick up that rotisserie chicken that they have. So I was there one afternoon. And the parking lot was pretty crowded, so I'm driving around. And I saw a spot, so I started to pull in. But I stopped because there was a sign. This is what the sign at the Big Y says in that spot. It says, parking for customers with children. Okay. So I pulled in. I get out of the car, and this lady yells at me. She goes, where are your children? I go, well, my daughter lives in Easton. Our son lives down in Maryland. How about yourself? Well, I guess because of the expression on her face that they, need to change the wording of the sign just a little bit. Just a little bit. There's a restaurant in Raynham, I believe, called Barrels and Boards. You know it? Heard of it? Okay, Barrels and Boards. It's a nice restaurant. It's not a sports bar. It's a nice restaurant. Well, we've been there a few times, and in the men's room, right above the urinals, are TV screens. For real, there are TV screens above the urinals. And to tell you the truth, at my age, I really don't need the distraction. I don't. But the funniest thing was on Mother's Day, we made a reservation there. And this isn't a sports bar that has TV screens, everywhere. There must have been some sporting event on, because on that day I went into the men's room, and there were like 20 guys in there watching the TV screens above the urinals. Unbelievable. I want to tell you a story. I used to drive for a limousine service, picking people up, bringing them to the airport and everything. And one day I had to pick a woman up downtown on the morning of a Patriots victory parade. And I think the last time we did that was maybe 6 or 7 years ago, the last year that Brady was with us, when they won the Super Bowl. So if you're not familiar with what happens in Boston when there's one of these victory parades, it's massive attendance. I had to pick her up at a hotel that was the 90, which is 90 Tremont Street, which is right on the parade route. So I had to pick her up the morning of that parade. It took forever to get there. Tens of thousands of people come out to see the parade. All the duck boats that go by. So the parade starts at Government Center, and it comes down and it joins Tremont Street, goes along the Common, takes right on Boylston Street, and ends up near the Prue. The parade takes about an hour and a half to get by one point. Because what does the parade do? It goes about 100 feet and stops. Goes about 100 feet and stops. So I'm in there that morning, and the iron railings are up on each side of the street. People are packed, 5, 6, 7 people deep on each side, and the noise is deafening. Everyone's anticipating the parade with the Patriots players on the duck boats and all these vehicles that have, the players and their families and all. And the woman I'm picking up, I have to get her to the airport so she can get on British Air. She's going home, back to London. So when she made plans for this business trip, she knew nothing about New England Patriots. Patriots parade was going to happen. She had no idea that was going to happen. So I was able to get down an alley right next to the hotel and wait for her at a side entrance. And I was talking with the policeman up at the top of the alley because I needed to go up there and take a left to get out of there. So the policeman said to me, he says, if you guys don't leave soon, I have to close this off and you're going to be stuck here for an hour and a half. So I'm texting with a woman, and she was at a business meeting, and she was walking back, and telling her, you're not going to get home. We have to leave. So finally she gets down, gets in the car, and so I put my high beams on, my emergency flashers, and I start going up to the end of the alley so I can take a left on Tremont. The officer is just starting to close the gate. So he sees me, right? So I drive up to him, he goes, all right, slow down. And he knows I have to get this woman to the airport. So the officer looks to his side, and he goes, all right, keep your high beams on, keep your flashes on, and go slow. Okay. Came out the end of the street, took a left, looked in my rearview mirror, and the parade is right behind me. Right behind me. I'm driving a black Cadillac 4-door. We're dressed in a business suit, businesswoman in the back seat. People are clapping for us. They're cheering for us. They think that we are the lead car of the parade, right? So this prim and proper British woman in the back seat, all of a sudden, what does she do? She's waving at people now. She's waving at everybody, right? And, it was a nice day. It was January, it was early February. So I rolled down the windows a little bit. The noise was deafening. And she's really getting into it, waving at people, right? And people are yelling, who is she? Who is she? So she asked me, she said, what should I say? I said, tell them you're Belichick's secretary. So she's screaming out the window, I'm Belichick's secretary. I'm Belichick's secretary, right? And then she asked me to pull over a little more to the right. Now remember, I'm synchronizing with the parade. They go 100 feet and stop, 100 feet and stop. So I'm stopping whenever the parade stops because I'm having a good time as well. So she asked me to pull over a little more to the right. Why? She's now high-fiving people as we're going by. So we continue on our way, and I saw a few people gave her like a rose or some stuff like that. She's having the greatest time. Well, I get her to the airport, and she says, you know, I had this is the greatest ride I ever had. And I said, yeah. People even gave you stuff, right? She said, yeah. Some little boy gave me a football. He what? He gave me a football. He didn't give you a football. You were supposed to sign it and give it back to him. So she goes, oh, that's what the magic marker was for. Poor woman, poor kid's football was stolen by a woman, brought it back to England with her. Oh. Before I finish up, I want to just take a peek. There was some stuff I want to make sure I said here. Oh, I could do that. That was fun. Is Needham considered South Shore at all, or are you more like Metro West or something? Okay, so you're aware of the friendly competition between people who live north of Boston or from the North Shore, people south of Boston or South Shore, but you're Metro West. But you know, if you go online, there's a lot of funny little things about the perceived cultural differences between North Shore and South Shore people. You know, like they have Cape Ann, we have Cape Cod, they have Revere Beach, we have Nantasket Beach, you know, stuff like that. So our youngest son lives in a little town up there called Groveland, which is next to Haverhill on the New Hampshire border. And he lives there because he married a North Shore girl. And she wasn't from any of the nicer towns on the North Shore. She was from one of the toughest cities up there. Anybody want to take a guess? Lawrence is a good guess, but she was from Lynn. Yeah, she was from Lynn. And you know there's a poem about Lynn. Do you know it? Okay, so we'll do it together. Ready? Lynn, Lynn, city of sin, you never come out the way you went in. Now, there's a reason that poem exists, because it is a tough city. Now, I actually did pick up a woman one day who was a native of Lynn. And guess what? They don't really like that poem, because I brought it up in conversation. They actually have their own version of that poem. And it goes like this. Lynn, Lynn, city of sin, if you can't find it here, go to Revere. And that's their version of that poem. Now, we tried to warn our son, you know, if you do marry her, you're going to be married to a North Shore girl. Just keep that in mind. Yeah, that'll be fine for that. So I remember the first time we met Jen, our daughter-in-law, that did get married. Her parents actually still live in the city of Lynn. And tall, long blonde hair, and jewelry. She had all this jewelry all around. Necklaces, rings, bracelets, even, you know, the ankle bracelet and everything. In fact, the ankle bracelet that she was wearing, so stunning, you could hardly even tell it was a GPS tracking device. But yeah, she's a good sport. She knows I tell that joke about her. But she also introduced us to this charcuterie board thing you're familiar with eating stuff off of a piece of wood, basically, right? It's a piece of wood with meats and cheeses and spreads. There goes my bodyguard, so everybody relax. And I did some research. Well, she was really into this charcuterie board. She'd decorate it with spreads, and you'd eat right off of this board, right? So I did some research, and this is how that thing started. In France, this couple operated a little roadside cafe in Paris, and it was mostly frequented by Americans that went there. And one day they were really busy, and an American couple ordered their meat and fruit and cheese, bowl or platter, actually. And the wife said, it's just the two of them, the husband and the wife. And the wife said to the husband, says, we're out of platters. What should I use? He goes, I don't know, use something. Just, and jokingly, he said, just go grab a piece of plywood from out back or something, right? So she thought it was serious. She went out back. She grabbed a piece of plywood, dusted it off, and put all these things on this little piece of plywood. And afterwards, the Americans came up and they go, wow, we love that. That was really good. And even on that, piece of wood. And so the husband's thinking, he goes, we could make money on this. We could market this and sell it abroad and all like that. And then I found out that charcuterie is French slang for stupid Americans. So I always finish my shows with a piece of advice. And if someone were to come to you and ask you for a piece of advice with all the experience we have in the room, I'm sure you'd come up with something, right? So from me to you, and I hope this comes in handy someday, this is my advice. Never go through a car wash when you have to pee. It never ends well. Thank you, Needham. My pleasure. Thanks.